Well, what we've been doing since 2010 actually is trying to build up our school standards, and that's been successful by and large. And we've got 650 free schools and obviously a lot of multi-academy trusts, and that's been a big change under this government. And that sent standards soaring from 68% when we took over to 88% now. So we think it's a very successful programme, and it's a very innovative approach to education as well. It's very flexible. So what we have in these 15 is we've got the Brit School for the North, which is going to be fantastic at creating that creative industries talent in the North as well. We've got UTCs, which are working with lots of businesses to deliver green energy, healthcare, science, etc. So there's a lot of work with businesses. And then we've also got some that are collaborations between private schools, Eton and Star Academy. And they really do help to level up opportunity across the country. In terms of funding, the funding settlement since I've been Education Secretary, which have been 2 billion, which we got in the autumn statement, and then additional monies to fund the pay rise that we settled recently, mean that from next year, we will be spending £60 billion, just under £60 billion on schools, which is the highest by any measure in our history. So our schools are well funded, and we continue to invest in the areas that we need to improve standards or we need to improve opportunity for young people.
You've talked about the reasons why these particular areas have been picked for these free schools, the weakest parts of the UK in terms of education. After 13 years of Conservative government, why are there parts of the UK that are still so weak you have to build new schools?
Well, I grew up in Knowsley, and I'll be honest, that's been an education cold spot for a long time. And these things are very entrenched. They are difficult to move, but we have started to really move the dial, and many, many more areas now have a lot of good or outstanding schools. And the attainment gap has also been narrowing up to 2019 when the pandemic struck. But there is no doubt that, as we get to this last sort of 12%, that we have to be more and more innovative. We have to look at a range of different options. But those areas, every single area is improving. But it is true, and I know this growing up in Knowsley, that there are areas that for decades and decades have had much lower outcomes than the rest of the country, and they're what we call education investment areas and priority areas for this government.
But why not focus your money and your attention across the wider state system rather than just cherry picking a small number of areas? I mean, there's some 12,000 children who could benefit from this particular round of announcements, but that's a drop in the ocean, isn't it, for the number of children across the whole of the UK?
Well, it is, but these are 15 free schools that we're announcing today in 2023. Since we introduced...
A couple of them have already been announced, haven't they? I mean, there are, 12 or 13 new ones today. As you say, we already knew about the Brit School and the Eton Star plans, didn't we?
No, only one that was announced on Sunday. So there's 14 new ones today, if you want to pick that point. But this is on top of, we've had 650 free schools all across the country since 2010-11. So this was a big part of our sort of innovation in education, to really make sure that we focused on improving school standards, not on a particular ideology or a particular model, but to make sure that we were flexible and really focus on improving school standards. So I'm in Chichester, my own constituency. We have a free school which has been up and running for a number of years. So they are all over the country. There were bids that were put together, and they're put together in different ways, working collaboratively with different people. But this is 15 as part of a 650 programme, 40 of which will open in September for the first time.
When we spoke to you last week on A-level results day, you did say to people, don't worry too much. A-levels tend to get forgotten in a few years. They're not always that important. A lot of people also, you said, go to university because they don't know what else to do. Recent IFS work shows that students from disadvantaged backgrounds see the very, very largest benefits from going on to university. Do you think your comments last week were maybe a little ill-judged?
No, they were taken out of context, as they always are. People take one line. I spent lots of time...
Well, I was Sam talking to you on the sofa. It was a whole interview.
They really worked very hard. They were very resilient. But it is true, and I will stand by the comments, because I was asked this actually after a business guy had said the same in an earlier interview, and I will stand by the comments. As somebody who's worked for 30 years in business, that has employed hundreds, if not thousands of people, I can honestly say I've never asked anybody for their A-level results or what grades they got. That's just the reality. 10 years later, which is the time period I was asked about, that is the reality. But what it is all about is destination, and making sure you can get to the next destination. What I've been very focused on is making sure that not only do the most disadvantaged people are able to go to university, and by the way, they're 86% more likely to go to university since 2010. So that has been, a big success of this government, but also that there are other routes to the same destination, to make sure that there are more routes with really high quality apprenticeships and a degree apprenticeship, such as I did. So if you're wanting to get into the workplace and if you're wanting to earn and learn, then there are alternative routes for you. If you're wanting to skip the student debt, then that's also an option for you. So it really is about making sure that there's lots of options and lots of different opportunities for you, but always it's the destination that makes sense.
Just before we let you go, the Lucy Letby case, of course, is on the front page of all of the newspapers today. Following the coverage of the trial, how concerned are you from what appears to be the case that doctors at the hospital who expressed concerns were not listened to by NHS managers?
Well, this is, of course, a key question for the inquiry. So what we're doing right now is obviously looking to appoint a chair for the inquiry and work on the terms of reference with the families. But it's really, really important that lessons are learned, and the inquiry will look at all of this in great detail, I'm sure.
There's no one regulating these managers. Of course, if doctors make mistakes, there's the General Medical Council. Do you think there should be consequences for managers whose actions lead to small babies dying?
Well, that seems, again, like something that the inquiry will be the right place to focus on, that with all of the details and all of the options. And that's the right place for them to look at that.